Augustus. Who could have imagined that the sickly, unremarkable boy from an obscure family would one day rule the world? That he would rise from the ashes of civil war, outlive his enemies, and reshape Rome in his own image? That he, Caesar's quiet heir, would become not just a ruler, but a god in the eyes of his people? And yet, power comes at a cost. The blood spilled in his name, the betrayals he orchestrated, the empire he built on both genius and fear, was it worth it? When Augustus closed his eyes for the last time, did he see a legacy of greatness or a throne built on ghosts? It began with blood. On March 15, 44 BCE, Rome's greatest general, Julius Caesar, fell beneath the knives of men he once called friends. The Senate floor was soaked in betrayal. Brutus, Cassius, and over 60 conspirators had struck, believing they had saved the Republic. Instead, they had unknowingly set the stage for its final downfall. Far from the chaos in Rome, a young man received the news. He was barely 18. His name was Gaius Octavius, though the world knew him only as Caesar's distant relative. Julius Caesar had adopted him as his son and made him the heir to his fortune, his name, and most importantly, his power. A teenager had just inherited the future of Rome. Octavian was no warrior. He had never led an army, never commanded men, never even seen the Senate floor. Mark Antony, Caesar's trusted general, laughed at the idea of this fragile boy stepping into his father's sandals. The senators, still drunk on their victory, dismissed him as irrelevant. But they underestimated him. They all did. The moment he set foot in Rome, Octavian made it clear. He was no child, and he would not be ignored. He accepted his inheritance, took his great-uncle's name, and called himself Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus. To the people, he was now Caesar's son, and with that name came loyalty, expectation, and power. But power is never given freely. It must be taken. Antony controlled the legions. The Senate feared another dictator. Brutus and Cassius, the assassins, still roamed free. Rome was on the edge of war, and Octavian was trapped in the middle. He started where no one expected, with the people. He paid Caesar's promised inheritance out of his own pocket, winning public support. He raised an army, not from Rome's elite, but from veterans who had once fought under his great-uncle. With every step, he was no longer just Caesar's heir, he was a force to be reckoned with. But he needed allies. And so, against all logic, he reached out to his greatest rival, Mark Antony. Along with a third, the forgotten politician Lepidus, they formed the Second Triumvirate, a fragile alliance built on ambition, necessity, and a shared thirst for revenge. Their first act? Purge Rome of its enemies. The assassins of Caesar were marked for death. Brutus and Cassius fled, but they would not escape for long. The hunt had begun, and Rome would soon drown in blood once again. In 42 BCE, a strong battle took place at Philippi in Greece. Brutus and Cassius led a strong army. However, they faced Rome's two most powerful generals. The battle had two main fights, and in both, the triumvirate won. Cassius thought they had lost, so he took his own life. Brutus saw no hope and followed him soon after. With their deaths, the last hope for the Republic also died. The war ended, but peace was not real. Octavian and Antony's alliance was never going to last. Now that they had defeated their common enemy, the two powerful men turned against each other. Rome could not support two rulers. The man who was once Octavian's ally became his biggest rival. When Antony teamed up with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, it shocked everyone in Rome. Octavian saw this as more than just a romance, he viewed it as betrayal. Cleopatra wasn't just a girlfriend, she was a powerful queen with her own empire. Her goals reached far beyond Egypt. Together, Antony and Cleopatra posed a real threat to Rome's power. Octavian knew he had to take action. Octavian launched a powerful propaganda campaign. He painted Antony as a traitor. Octavian claimed Antony had turned his back on Rome for an Egyptian queen. He spread rumors that Antony promised parts of Rome to Cleopatra. Octavian said Antony was no longer a Roman general. Instead, he claimed Antony was a puppet of a foreign power. The Senate believed Octavian's accusations. They declared war, but not on Antony. They declared war on Cleopatra. The message was clear: Rome was not in a civil war. Rome was fighting to protect itself from outside control. The final confrontation came in 31 BCE at the Battle of Actium. The Ionian Sea became the stage for one of the most decisive naval battles in history. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet was powerful, but Octavian's navy, commanded by the brilliant Agrippa, was superior in strategy. The battle was fierce, fire and blood staining the waters as warships clashed. Then, in a moment that sealed their fate, Cleopatra's fleet broke away from the fight and fled. Seeing her departure, Antony followed. His soldiers, left leaderless, surrendered. With their forces shattered, Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Alexandria. But the war was already lost. Octavian pursued them relentlessly, his victory inevitable. In a final act of desperation, Antony fell on his own sword, dying in Cleopatra's arms. Knowing she would be paraded through Rome as a captive, Cleopatra chose death on her own terms. The legend says she allowed an asp to bite her, though some believe she used poison. Whatever the method, her reign ended in tragedy. Octavian stood victorious. He had defeated his greatest rival, destroyed the last remnants of the Republic, and secured his place as the undisputed ruler of Rome. There was no one left to challenge him. The Republic was no more, and in its place, an empire was born, under the rule of a single man, Augustus. After Antony and Cleopatra lost, Octavian came back to Rome as the top leader. But the people of Rome really disliked monarchs. They remembered Julius Caesar's assassination, which showed that having a dictator was risky. Octavian had to find a way to keep his power without looking like a dictator. The war was over, but the real battle for power had only just begun. The Roman Republic had collapsed in all but name, and its fate rested in the hands of one man. Octavian, now victorious and without rivals, stood at a crossroads. Would he restore the Republic as he had once claimed, or would he seize the moment and reshape Rome in his own image? The answer came in 27 BCE. Octavian stood in front of the Senate. He put on a great show and gave up his special powers. He said he was done with his work and returned control of Rome to the Senate. The Senate was amazed and maybe a little scared of him. They pleaded with him to stay in power. So, Octavian reluctantly accepted and became Augustus, which means the Exalted One. This title seemed humble, but it marked the start of his total control. Rome now had its first emperor, even though Augustus pretended it was a return to the Republic. Augustus did not call himself a monarch. He knew that Romans disliked kings. Instead, he created a system where he had all the power but made it look like they shared it. He kept control of the army, the provinces, and the treasury. The Senate still acted as an advisory group. He called himself princeps, which means first citizen. This title made the Romans feel proud while making it clear who was really in charge. With power firmly in his grasp, Augustus was determined to reshape Rome for the better. His main goal was to bring stability to the city. After many years of fighting, the people wanted peace. Augustus gave them peace through the Pax Romana. This was a time of great prosperity that lasted over 200 years. During his rule, roads were built, trade grew, and cities got bigger. Rome changed from a city of brick to a city of marble. This showed Augustus' ambition and vision. He built temples, forums, and big public works. These changes made Rome look like the eternal city. Augustus also reformed the military. The legions, once loyal to individual generals, now swore allegiance to the emperor alone. Veterans were rewarded with land and pensions, ensuring their loyalty. The Praetorian Guard was established as a personal bodyguard, a force that would later become both a symbol of imperial power and a dangerous political entity in its own right. Beyond Rome, Augustus reorganized the provinces, ensuring efficient governance. Corruption was rooted out, tax collection was standardized, and local rulers were either replaced or brought firmly under imperial control. His policies stabilized the empire, allowing it to thrive economically and culturally. Trade routes connected Rome to distant lands, from India to Britain, bringing exotic goods and ideas into the empire. Despite his iron grip on power, Augustus understood the importance of public perception. He positioned himself as the protector of Roman values, promoting traditional morality and family life. Laws were enacted to encourage marriage and childbirth, and he presented himself as a humble servant of the state. He carefully managed his image, ensuring that statues and coins bore his likeness as the benevolent ruler who had restored order to a chaotic world. But not all was peaceful. Augustus faced conspiracies and resistance, even within his own family. His ambitious wife, Livia, maneuvered to secure power for her own descendants, while his intended heirs met untimely deaths, fueling rumors of intrigue and poisoning. The question of succession loomed large. Who would follow Augustus, and could anyone truly replace him? The transition from republic to empire was not merely political, it was cultural. Augustus understood the power of symbols and narratives. He patronized poets like Virgil, whose epic, the Aeneid, linked Rome's destiny to divine will and painted Augustus as its destined ruler. He restored religious temples, revived traditional ceremonies, and positioned himself as a bridge between Rome's glorious past and its promising future. His reign was a blend of ruthless pragmatism and theatrical grandeur, a careful balancing act between absolute authority and public support. Economically, Augustus' policies laid the foundation for Rome's prosperity. He stabilized currency, reformed taxation, and invested in infrastructure. The empire flourished under a centralized economy that encouraged trade and agriculture. With piracy reduced and roads secured, goods moved freely across the empire, strengthening its economy and enriching its citizens. Roman merchants traded as far as China, and exotic goods from Africa, the Middle East, and India found their way into Roman markets. Yet, Augustus was not without his critics. To some, his rule marked the end of true Roman freedom. The Senate, though preserved, had lost its real power. Political opposition was stifled, and dissenters were exiled or eliminated. The Republic's ideals had been swept away, replaced by the rule of one man. But to most Romans, the price was worth paying. Stability, prosperity, and peace were more valuable than the chaos of the past century. Augustus' personal life was as politically strategic as his military campaigns. His marriages were not about love, they were calculated moves to secure his position and stabilize Rome. Augustus had 2 marriages before he found lasting love. His first wife was Clodia Pulchra, who was the stepdaughter of Mark Antony. This marriage was not about love, it was a political move to strengthen ties with Antony. But with the problems that arose, in addition to their personal issues, Augustus ended the marriage. He claimed it was never consummated, and he quickly moved on. Next, he married Scribonia. She was older than him and came from a powerful family. They had one daughter, Julia the Elder. But Augustus did not love her. He divorced Scribonia on the same day Julia was born. He chose power and politics over personal happiness. Then he met Livia Drusilla. At the time, she was married and pregnant. Augustus wanted her, so he made her husband divorce her. This marriage was more than just love. Livia was smart, loyal, and well-connected. They stayed married for over 50 years, but they never had children together. Some people thought this was a plan. Augustus might have wanted to keep his sons from becoming political tools. Despite his many affairs, Livia remained his closest confidant. She had influence over his decisions, and some even suspected that she played a role in shaping the line of succession. When Augustus died, it was Livia who ensured that his will was carried out exactly as he had planned. Augustus had won. He outlived his rivals and defeated his enemies. Now, he was the ruler of Rome. But his victory came with a cost. He would pay this cost every day for the rest of his life. He felt paranoid from the start. Once someone gains power, they don't want to lose it. Augustus understood that betrayal often comes from close friends. He had seen what happened to Julius Caesar, and he fought hard to avenge him. Augustus was determined not to end up like Caesar. He surrounded himself with loyal allies. However, he knew that loyalty could change quickly. Augustus had built his empire on stability, yet he himself could never feel secure. He reorganized the Senate, filled it with men he trusted, or, at least, men who feared him enough to obey. He created a vast network of spies, informants, and advisors who ensured that no plot against him could rise unchecked. He ruled through a careful balance of fear and respect, rewarding those who served him well and eliminating those who did not. Augustus had many worries. One of his biggest problems was time. Rome needed stability, and Augustus wanted to create a strong empire. He had rebuilt it, but he knew he couldn't be there forever. He needed a successor who could keep his vision alive after he was gone. Finding the right heir became a major challenge for him. His first choice was his nephew Marcellus. Marcellus was young and had a bright future ahead. He came from the right family, so he seemed perfect. Unfortunately, Marcellus died suddenly at just 19 years old. This left Augustus heartbroken and searching for other options. Next, Augustus thought about Agrippa. Agrippa was his most trusted general and a great leader. However, Agrippa was not from a noble family. Even so, Augustus took a chance. He married his daughter Julia to Agrippa, hoping their children could carry on his legacy. But death came for Agrippa too, and Augustus found himself once again without a clear successor. His grandsons, Gaius and Lucius, were the next in line, but both died young, leaving Augustus with no choice but to turn to his stepson, Tiberius. Tiberius was not Augustus's ideal heir. He was cold, distant, and lacked the charisma that had made Augustus so beloved. But he was capable, and more importantly, he was the only real option left. Augustus forced him to adopt his own nephew, Germanicus, in the hopes that the bloodline would remain strong. But Tiberius resented Augustus for it, and the tension between them grew. Age caught up with Augustus. The once vibrant ruler who had reshaped the world now found himself a frail old man, worn down by the weight of his empire. His body weakened, but his mind remained sharp. He knew his time was short, and he made sure every detail of his succession was in place. He left Rome for the last time in AD 14, retreating to Nola, the town where his father had died. It was there, surrounded by his closest family and advisors, that Augustus breathed his final words. According to legend, he asked those gathered around him, "Have I played my part well? If so, applaud as I exit." And with that, the man who had turned Rome from a crumbling republic into an unstoppable empire was gone. Augustus was no ordinary ruler. His death did not mark the end of his influence. The Senate wasted no time in deifying him, declaring him a god, just as they had done with Julius Caesar. Temples were built in his honor, statues erected in his image. His name, his legacy, became eternal. Tiberius, despite his resentment, took the throne as Augustus had planned, but he ruled in his own way. Rome would never again have another Augustus. He had been more than a man, he had been a symbol, a force that reshaped history itself. Augustus had feared betrayal, had lived his life haunted by the possibility of assassination, but in the end, he had accomplished what no other had. He had secured his legacy, ensured Rome's stability, and ascended beyond mortality. Augustus, who was once called Octavian, built a great empire but paid a high price for his power. He rose to power after Julius Caesar was assassinated. He fought against his former allies and defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra. After these battles, he became the sole ruler of Rome. However, his real skill was not in fighting. It was in how he changed Rome. He pretended to restore the Republic while keeping all the power for himself. This created a system that shaped the empire for many years. Augustus's personal life was similar to his political moves. His marriages were planned, and his relationships were often distant. His only child, Julia, was used to form political alliances. His last wife, Livia, was likely his closest partner. They were together for over 50 years, and she helped secure his legacy after he died. Despite his achievements, Augustus lived with fear. He worried about being betrayed, exiled his own daughter, and always looked for a good heir. Even as he was dying, he thought about Rome and how history would remember him. In the end, history did remember Augustus. But brooding properly over this story, was he a savior or just another ruler lost in his power? What do you think? Kindly share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video for more informative videos. See you in the next video.